We see a world where communities are meaningfully involved in service to the world.
Good morning. Look at this. I have a little cheering section back in the corner. It's great. It is a trip to be back, and it's lovely. This will always be home. It's funny how an hour can feel like a lifetime. I thought I was going to be up here a lot. I'm just down the road. It's just an hour away. But they've been keeping me busy. So this month we are collectively as an organization having a conversation about service to the world. And it's been such a good thing, such a rich thing down in Oakland, because what we're discovering is that there are levels and layers of it. What I'm discovering about myself is that there are levels and layers, and I've discovered some new ones this last few weeks that I'm going to share with you this morning. It's been very rich and evocative and transformative in so doing. But also I realized that it's very powerful that we're having this conversation not just as Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa, not just as Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, but we're having it as a community of over 100 centers for spiritual living. And it's kind of like praying together. When we have these conversations with a powerful group of conscious, awake, intentional people, focusing on things like love and peace and kindness and stewardship and service. So we're wandering into this inquiry together, and every Sunday morning when I stand at the pulpit in Oakland, I think about you all. And I know that you're having a similar conversation here, and it's a lovely thing. Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis in Seattle, in a conversation a few weeks ago, used the word influence. And it stuck in my head. I like the word, I like the idea very much. It's very empowering, influence. And by having this conversation together, that's what we do. We influence our community. It's happening in Oakland just in a few weeks. Agreeing to have these conversations together, witnessing, supporting, watching, walking with each other, holding the light for each other sometimes when it feels dark. And as we influence each other in spiritual community, we influence the greater community. And then we influence our culture, and then we influence our world. One of the reasons that I like influence is because it relieves me of the burden of figuring everything out. I like that a lot. Or fixing everything or anything, really. And at the same time, it reminds me that the way that I show up in the world, the way that we show up, and the conversations that we have are very influential. We may not know exactly the outcomes or the results or the effects of these conversations, but make no mistake that they are very influential upon the human consciousness. This is a good time in our history as a species to be having the conversations that we're having in the Centers for Spiritual Living. And it occurred to me, too, this past week, what a good example this collaborative conversation is of service. I'm not sure if you're aware who organized this thing, who structured it and put it together and framed it. It was Dr. Edward. And then he gave it away to the whole organization. And most people don't even know it, which makes it all the more lovely, you see. I was gifted with another example of this kind of service that made a huge impression on me just a few weeks after I arrived in Oakland. At that time, I was meeting with everybody about everything. That was fun. Our Financial Stewardship Committee was one of those meetings, and a few days after that initial meeting with that committee, we had one of our monthly community work days, which is a fabulous, lovely thing. Evan does something similar here. And I noticed one of my stewardship committee members, who is a very smart, very awake, very educated, professional woman in very high service to the community, was back in a corner on the back stairs with a toothbrush in her hand, scrubbing the little track on the stairs, on each stair. And it stopped me in my tracks, and I was touched because I knew that she understood selfless service. She was just showing up and doing what needed to be done. When we serve life from that kind of place, it has the power to flavor the whole village, the whole pot of soup. And we know that. We recognize it sometimes in the Gandhis and the Kings and the Saint Teresa. She's Saint Teresa now rather than Mother Teresa. Isn't that fun? She said something that struck me. She said, we serve life, and this, consider the context of this. She said, we serve life not because it's broken, but because it's holy. I want some of that. And the good news is we can have it. There's 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground every day. Opportunities every day. And so this conversation, this inquiry, it takes us deeper into not just the consideration, but the experience. And it's critically important to realize and to remember that every single person today has the power to influence the whole pot. I have a great little spiritual practice that when all else fails, I'll keep these 3 little practices in my pocket. I will find something beautiful to behold every day. I will find something to be grateful for. And I will extend a kindness. See, extending that kindness is the service. When I was up here, I used to talk about letting people into traffic ahead of me. It's different in the North Bay than it is in the East Bay. But I've adapted. I'm still kind, I just do it faster. All of this interconnectedness, it's all connected. It doesn't matter what the kindness is or to whom. A toothbrush can be very powerful that way. What a great example she was. And I'm so grateful to her because she's in high service. She's very conscious. She's very low maintenance. Hallelujah. And you see her everywhere, just in service, very quietly serving. And it has a great influence. It's not a loud influence. It's not a in-your-face influence. It's subtle and extremely powerful. This is the influence that we get to have. Dr. Holmes said, the world is saturated with divinity and filled with possibility. We must take this divine possibility and mold it into a present actuality in everyday experience. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And every person here can do that. I've been thinking this last week about the events in life that rock us back on our heels. Last week I was sitting with September 11th and thinking about how we showed up for each other then. Those events that stop us in our tracks and make us pause to reconsider what's important. How do I want to show up in the world? And we woke up, for a while anyway. That pause that's now held me for a week is such an incredible spiritual practice once we recognize it as such. Those moments of reconsideration. I pause a lot these days. I want to pause. I want to reconsider. I want my heart to be touched and to be moved. And I have to be awake for that to happen. Everything's a miracle. This conversation is built on the cornerstone of our philosophy, which says that God is all there is. We just forgot when we walked out the door. Sometimes we do. It happens. Our forgetters are very effective that way. Try driving down Highway 24 at 5:30 in the afternoon. All the 80s down there, it's wild. The practice of kindness is a service to the world. How we show up and how we love each other and how we serve each other. But it's our nature. Ram Dass says, caring as a reflex. Someone slips, your arm goes out. A car's in a ditch, you join others to push. A colleague at work has the blues, you let them know you care. It all seems normal and appropriate. You live, you help. See? And it's the love, it's the selflessness of that kind of service that makes it holy and sacred. We need each other, and we show up for each other, and we love each other. 15 years ago, it became a way of life for a while, a few months. And it didn't matter then, and it doesn't matter now, the specifics, the tasks, visibility or accolades or bigness or smallness, importance or unimportance of the service. We showed up in 1,000 different ways for each other. And we learned a lot about ourselves. The challenge seems to be to remember. Boy, we were just leading with our hearts. We weren't even thinking. We were just loving each other. And it was extraordinary to behold. I ran across an article this last week in my Seva files that drew me deeper again. I've read this article 20 times over the last 10 years. But this is what this conversation does, the levels and the layers of it. I want to share it with you, 4 paragraphs. Paragraph 1, the Sanskrit word seva, defined as selfless service, translates directly as thread, implying that all things are connected in the thread of existence. To engage with one is to engage with the whole. Likewise, to serve one is to serve the whole. That's what I was speaking to earlier. It doesn't matter about how we serve or who we serve or how we serve or what we serve. It matters that we serve. Because no matter how that happens, it affects everything else. That's our influence again. Whether it's taking a toothbrush to the tracks in the stairs or something that we decide is more important. It all affects everything else. The article continues, in its current use, seva is a spiritual practice of selfless service springing from 2 forms of yoga, karma yoga, which is the yoga of action, and bhakti yoga, the yoga of worship, inspired by divine love. And so I realized this week when I read this, that service is the action of divine love. Why would I not do that? It totally reframed it for me. Service, it continues, can be as simple as helping a child cross the street or serving in a war-torn land a world away. Whatever the case, Seva is one of the most profound and life-changing of practices. However we choose to express our own unique Seva practice, we ultimately test our altruism and put our spiritual knowledge into action. And this is a place where it got interesting for me early on, and I can still bump into this. Altruism, a quality possessed by people whose focus is on something other than themselves. Just saying. The article continues. Through the spirit of selfless action, performing Seva all the time in our activities, we attain a height of realization where our minds become absorbed in God. The practice of Seva becomes a path of spiritual living. And finally, Seva should be done with no expectation of reward or even acknowledgement of the work that is done. We serve not to convert or to save a soul, but simply to serve for no other reason. No strings attached, no carrots. Make yourself invisible and do acts of kindness without expectation, coming from a place of love. Loving, selfless, sacred service is the action of divine love, and anybody can do it, and anybody can do it today. Simple kindness. And there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I have this thing about church and chairs. When one becomes involved in spiritual community and the events that happen in spiritual community, there is always a room to be set up or taken apart. And after year after year after year of chairs, I started to wonder when would come the time when I would arrive at such a station that I would not have to deal with chairs. And the day came when I realized that the task was also the opportunity, that the resistance was also the invitation. I realized that I had somehow relegated that task to a lower status in my mind. I had carved that out and decided that it was less spiritual or something. And that was my whole problem. When we're in service, in the way that we're considering this month, just as a matter of course, contributing, giving, you live, you help, where consciousness is one of being in service to the world in that way, the specific task becomes irrelevant. And when that penny dropped, when that realization happened, it shifted my whole experience. Oh, how I love chairs now. One of my super high service people in Oakland and I were setting up chairs last week in our social hall. He's another one, he gets it. And I kind of stepped back and I saw the two of us doing this, and it touched me so deeply. It almost brought me to tears because I saw it for what it was. And I love to hear from people now who are being presented with the opportunity to learn what I learned. I get complaints, you see, about chairs that are not set up properly. And I say, oh, how wonderful for you that you have this opportunity. They're still not sure if they like me. I'll never forget Maggie Cole when I first started coming around here, and she thought she was in charge of everything, which she still does. And she said to me, honey, I have some things that need to be done, and I want you to do them. And I thought, because I had no clue about this stuff then. I didn't realize that she was introducing me to a spiritual practice. That she didn't just want tasks done. Well, she did. And there was more to the equation. But what I did realize at that time was that something within me ached for a greater experience of spiritual living. And I came here to find that out. How do I do that? How do I be that? How do I practice that? I had done the hour on a Sunday morning thing. It's all right for an hour. But then we go out that door into our world. I love the name of this place. Spiritual living. How are we doing with that? So Maggie sent me outside and had me pull weeds for weeks. Until I was promoted to bulletin folder. And how smart that was, because that's all that I could do then. And if you would ask me to meditate, that was it. It was a weed pulling meditation. Everything is holy now. The action of divine love is spiritual living. We live, we help. It's our nature. It doesn't matter how we show up in loving service. What matters is that we show up in loving service. No matter what we choose, every day we influence the whole pot of soup that is human consciousness. Everything's connected in the thread of existence. To engage with one is to engage with all. Dr. Holmes says we should not only pray, we should act, each contributing the best we have to the common purpose. And not because it has to be done, not because it needs to be done, not because it should be done, but because it's holy. Everything is holy now. We live, we help, we love because it's our nature, and we serve because serving is the action of divine love. And that is a pretty good definition for today of spiritual living. Let us pray. So I allow the breath to remind me of the presence and the flow of life itself, pouring itself into body and mind and heart and soul. That there is a movement, that there is an impulsion, there is a desire to live, to witness, to serve, and to love. That is, in fact, my desire and my design. Each of us here this morning a place for that to happen in 1,000 different ways. None comparable to the other, none needing to be, for that diversity is the nature of creation as well. A rainbow without any single color would be short of its possibility, and yet here we stand in all of our diversity, all of our creativity, able to find 1,000 beautiful things today, able to find 1,000 things to be grateful for, able to extend 1,000 kindnesses, big and small, and in so doing, we influence the greater whole. We influence the community, we influence the greater community, we influence the culture, as we teach by example, sometimes with our toothbrushes, what's important. And so I'm grateful for remembering the truth of who and what I am, grateful to remember that I am inhabiting this place of spiritual living today, and that is the truth for every single person here. There is no there. It's here and now. And today is a very good day for spiritual living. I'm so grateful to release this word, to go before us, to accompany us, knowing all is well. God is all there is. And all we need to do is recognize it, celebrate it, and let it be. And so it is. Amen.